You know that feeling when your stomach drops and your blood runs cold? When everything you thought you knew about fairness and justice crumbles in front of you. That's exactly what happened to me 3 months ago. And what I did about it changed everything. My name is Sarah, and I worked, as a senior marketing analyst at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. I'd been there for 4 years, quietly climbing the ladder, putting in 60-hour weeks, and genuinely believing that hard work would speak for itself. How naive I was. It all started with the Grandview Hotels project, when our biggest client, Grandview Hotels, approached us for a complete rebranding strategy. Everyone in the office knew this was the make or break project of the year. The account was worth $2.3 million, and whoever led it successfully would basically guarantee themselves a promotion and a corner office. My boss, Derek Matthews, called me into his office on a Tuesday morning in September. Derek was one of those guys who wore expensive suits, but somehow always looked disheveled, like he'd slept in his car. He had this habit of clicking his pen while he talked, which normally annoyed me. But that day I was too excited to care. "Sarah," he said, leaning back in his leather chair, "I'm giving you the lead on Grandview. This is your shot to prove you belong in the big leagues." I practically floated out of that office. 4 years of proving myself, of staying late while others went to happy hour, of volunteering for the projects nobody else wanted. It was all leading to this moment. The Grandview project was my golden ticket. I threw myself into the work like my life depended on it. I spent weeks researching their target demographics, analyzing their competitors, studying market trends until my eyes burned. I interviewed focus groups, conducted surveys, and even flew to 3 different cities to visit their properties firsthand. I wanted to understand not just what their customers expected, but what they dreamed of. The breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Thursday night in October. I was sitting in my apartment, surrounded by coffee cups and crumpled papers, when it hit me. Grandview wasn't just selling hotel rooms, they were selling moments. The business travelers who needed to feel like they had a home away from home. The families creating memories on vacation. The couples celebrating anniversaries. The brand wasn't about luxury, it was about connection. I developed what I called the Moments Matter campaign. Every piece of marketing would focus on these emotional connections. The new logo would feature interlocking circles, representing the connections people make. The tagline would be, "Where every stay becomes a story." The entire visual identity would use warm, inviting colors that felt like a hug. But here's what made it special. I proposed they create story suites in select locations, rooms designed around different themes that would encourage guests to create and share their experiences. A writer's retreat suite with vintage typewriter and leather-bound journals. A family adventure suite with bunk beds designed like treehouses. It wasn't just rebranding, it was reimagining what hospitality could be. I worked 18-hour days perfecting every detail. I created comprehensive mood boards, wrote detailed implementation timelines, developed budget projections, and even designed mock-ups of how the story suites would look. The presentation I put together was 67 slides of pure passion and innovation. When I finally finished, I knew I had created something special. This wasn't just a marketing campaign. It was a complete transformation that could revolutionize how Grandview connected with their customers. I was so excited to present it that I could barely sleep. The morning of the presentation, I arrived at the office at 6 a.m. to run through everything one more time. The client meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m., and I wanted to make sure every transition was smooth. Every slide was perfect. This was my moment to shine. At 9:30, Derek called me into his office. I thought he wanted to give me a pep talk. or discuss last-minute details. Instead, he was sitting with Marcus Chen, one of the junior analysts who'd been hired just 8 months ago. "Change of plans, Sarah," Derek said, without looking up from his computer. "Marcus is going to present the Grandview proposal today." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "What? Derek, I've been working on this for months. This is my project." "And you did great work," he said dismissively. "But Marcus has more presentation experience with clients this size. We need our A-team on this one." Marcus had the decency to look uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. He just sat there while my world crumbled around me. More presentation experience. I could hear my voice getting higher. "Derek, I've presented to dozens of clients. I know this project inside and out. I created every single element of this campaign. Sarah, this isn't up for discussion. You'll be in the meeting to answer technical questions if needed, but Marcus will handle the presentation. That's final." I stumbled back to my desk in shock. 4 months of my life, countless sleepless nights, my best work ever, and I was being relegated to answering technical questions, while someone else got the glory. But I went to the meeting. I had to. I sat in the back corner while Marcus stood at the front of the conference room, presenting my ideas as if they were his own. He stumbled over the conceptual explanations, because he didn't truly understand the psychology behind the campaign. He couldn't answer detailed questions about the implementation because he hadn't done the research. But Derek kept stepping in to smooth things over, making it clear that Marcus was the lead on this project. The Grandview executives loved it. They were practically glowing as Marcus explained the Moments Matter concept. They asked detailed questions about the story suites, and Marcus had to keep looking at me for answers, which I provided in barely audible whispers, while Derek nodded approvingly at Marcus's expertise. "This is exactly what we were hoping for," said Janet Morrison, Grandview's CEO. "Marcus, your vision for emotional connection in hospitality is revolutionary. We're excited to move forward with this campaign. My vision, my months of work, my sleepless nights, and coffee-stained research." But Marcus smiled and accepted their praise like he deserved it. The contract was signed that afternoon. $2.3 million, the biggest deal in our company's history. And Derek made sure everyone knew that Marcus was the mastermind behind it. I went home that night and cried until I had no tears left. Then I got angry, really angry. The kind of anger that burns in your chest and keeps you awake at night plotting revenge. But I'm not the type to make a scene or confront people aggressively. I needed to be smart about this. I started documenting everything. Every email I'd sent about the project. Every research file I'd created. Every timestamp showing when I'd worked late. Every draft and revision of the presentation. I organized it all into a comprehensive timeline that clearly showed my ownership of every aspect of the campaign. But I knew documentation alone wouldn't be enough. I needed the right moment, the right audience, and the right approach to reveal the truth without looking petty or unprofessional. That moment came 3 weeks later. Derek announced that we'd be having our quarterly all-hands meeting on a Friday afternoon. The entire company would be there, all 43 employees, from the receptionist to the senior partners, and the main agenda item was celebrating the success of the Grandview project and discussing how to replicate that success with other clients. He sent out an email asking department heads to prepare presentations about their key learnings from the Grandview project. As the senior marketing analyst, I was expected to present on our marketing strategy and implementation process. This was it. This was my chance. I spent the entire week preparing a presentation that would reveal the truth without directly accusing anyone of wrongdoing. I would simply present the facts, the research process, the creative development, the strategic thinking behind each element, and let people draw their own conclusions. The Friday of the meeting, I arrived early and set up my laptop. I made sure my presentation was loaded and ready. I had printed copies of key documents as backup. My hands were shaking, but I felt more focused than I had in weeks. The conference room filled up gradually. Derek sat at the head of the table, looking smug. Marcus sat to his right, basking in the attention of colleagues, congratulating him on the Grandview success. I sat about halfway down the table, trying to look calm while my heart pounded in my chest. Derek started the meeting by talking about our record-breaking quarter and how the Grandview project had exceeded all expectations. He praised the innovative thinking and strategic excellence that had made it possible. Now, he said, gesturing toward Marcus, I'd like to invite the architect of our success, Marcus Chen, to share some insights about his award-winning campaign. Marcus stood up and began presenting a summary of the Grandview project. He talked about the research phase, the creative development, and the strategic positioning, all in vague terms that made it clear he didn't really understand the deeper thinking behind each element. When he finished, Derek opened the floor for questions. Several people asked about specific aspects of the campaign, and Marcus struggled to provide detailed answers. Derek kept jumping in to help, but even he couldn't explain the nuanced psychology behind the Moments Matter concept. Finally, Derek looked at me. Sarah, since you worked closely on the implementation side, maybe you can share some insights about our process and what other departments can learn from this approach. This was my moment. I stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the room on me. My presentation was titled, The Anatomy of Innovation, a deep dive into the Grandview campaign development process. Thank you, Derek, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm excited to share some insights about this project because it represents everything I love about strategic marketing. I clicked to my first slide, which showed a timeline of the project development from September through November. As you can see, the Grandview project began on September 15th, when Derek first briefed me on the client's needs and objectives. I spent the next 6 weeks conducting primary research, including focus groups in Atlanta, Nashville, and Charlotte. I clicked to the next slide, showing photos from my site, visits to Grandview properties. These are photos from my visits to 12 different Grandview locations, where I interviewed staff members, observed guest interactions, and analyzed the current brand experience firsthand. I could see Marcus shifting uncomfortably in his seat. Derek's expression had changed from smug satisfaction to growing concern. The breakthrough insight came during my analysis of guest feedback data on October 22nd. I clicked to a slide showing my original sketch of the Moments Matter concept, complete with my handwriting and the timestamp from my phone camera. I realized that Grandview wasn't just selling hotel rooms. They were selling emotional connections. This led to the development of what I called the Moments Matter positioning strategy. I proceeded to walk through every element of the campaign, showing my original research, my creative briefs, my strategic frameworks, and my detailed implementation plans. Each slide was time-stamped, showing clearly when each element was developed and by whom. The Story Suites concept emerged from my analysis of boutique hotel trends and customer desire for Instagram-worthy experiences. I continued, showing my original sketches and research notes. I developed detailed specifications for 6 different suite themes, complete with budget projections and ROI calculations. The room was completely silent. I could feel the tension building as people began to understand what they were seeing. This wasn't just a process overview. This was documentation of creative ownership. The final presentation, I said, clicking to a slide showing the original file properties, was completed on November 8th at 3:47 a.m. Every slide, every concept, every strategic recommendation you saw in the client presentation came from this work. I paused for a moment, looking around the room. Derek's face had gone pale. Marcus was staring at his hands. Everyone else was looking back and forth between us, clearly piecing together what had happened. Now, I want to be clear. I continued, keeping my voice calm and professional. This project's success belongs to our entire team. Marcus did an excellent job presenting to the client, and Derek provided valuable leadership throughout the process. But I think it's important for us to understand exactly how innovative work gets created, so we can replicate this success in the future. I clicked to my final slide, which showed a quote from Janet Morrison's follow-up email, praising the revolutionary emotional connection strategy, and specifically requesting to work with the creative genius behind the Moments Matter campaign on future projects. The client has specifically asked to work directly with the creator of this campaign on their upcoming expansion projects. I'm excited to continue building on this foundation we've established. I closed my laptop and sat down. The room was dead silent for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Margaret Phillips, one of the senior partners, spoke up. "Sarah, this is incredibly impressive work. The level of strategic thinking and creative innovation you've demonstrated is exactly what we're looking for in our senior team members." She looked pointedly at Derek. "I think we need to have a more detailed discussion about project ownership and recognition going forward." Derek cleared his throat nervously. "Well, of course Sarah contributed significantly to the project. I think there might have been some miscommunication about roles and responsibilities." Miscommunication? The question came from James Liu, our head of business development. "It seems pretty clear that Sarah developed this entire campaign. Are you saying you didn't know that when you had Marcus present it?" Derek's face was getting redder by the minute. "I think we should discuss this privately, rather than—" "Actually," Margaret interrupted, "I think transparency is exactly what we need right now." She looked directly at me. "Sarah, do you have documentation supporting everything you've shown us?" "Yes," I said simply. "Complete documentation going back to the initial project brief." "Excellent. I'd like to review that documentation this afternoon." She turned to Derek. "And I'd like to meet with you as well to discuss your management approach." The meeting basically ended there. People filed out in small groups, whispering to each other. Several colleagues came up to me afterward, expressing support and admiration for how I'd handled the situation. Marcus approached me as I was packing up my laptop. "Sarah, I'm really sorry about all this. I should have said something earlier, but Derek told me you were too busy with other projects to present. I didn't know you weren't okay with it." I looked at him for a moment. He was young, probably scared about his job, and clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Marcus," I said finally, "the next time someone asks you to take credit for work you didn't do, ask yourself if that's the kind of professional you want to be." He nodded miserably and walked away. Derek avoided me for the rest of the day, but Margaret's assistant called at 4 p.m. to schedule a meeting for the following Monday morning. That weekend was the longest of my life. I knew I'd done the right thing, but I also knew there would be consequences. Derek wasn't going to forgive me for exposing him in front of the entire company. Even if I was vindicated, my working relationship with my immediate supervisor was probably over. Monday morning came, and I walked into Margaret's office with my stomach in knots. She gestured for me to sit down across from her desk. "Sarah, I've reviewed all your documentation, and I've had several conversations over the weekend with Derek and other team members. I want you to know that what happened to you was completely unacceptable. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. Derek has acknowledged that he made a serious error in judgment regarding the Grandview presentation. He's agreed to take a leave of absence to reconsider his management approach and will be restructuring the marketing department. She leaned forward. More importantly, I want to offer you Derek's position as marketing director. The Grandview campaign represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking we want to foster, and your handling of this situation shows the kind of leadership integrity we need. I was speechless. In the span of a week, I'd gone from having my work stolen to being offered my boss's job. There's one more thing, Margaret continued. The Grandview executives have specifically requested that you lead their upcoming expansion campaign. They want to work directly with what they're calling the brilliant mind behind Moments Matter. It's a 3-year contract worth $6.8 million. I accepted the position on the spot. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of transition meetings, team restructuring, and project planning. Derek cleared out his office the following Friday without saying goodbye to anyone. Marcus was transferred to a different department where he could learn and grow without the shadow of this incident hanging over him. But the most satisfying moment came 3 weeks later, during our first progress meeting with the Grandview team. Janet Morrison pulled me aside afterward. "Sarah, I have to tell you, we've worked with a lot of agencies over the years, but your presentation was different. You didn't just understand our business, you understood our heart. When you talked about creating moments and connecting people, I knew you really got what hospitality means." She paused. "We actually suspected something wasn't quite right during the original presentation. The young man presenting clearly knew the material, but when we asked deeper questions about the emotional psychology behind the campaign, he kept looking to someone else for answers. We figured out pretty quickly who the real creative force was. I realized then that the truth has a way of revealing itself, even when people try to hide it. Authenticity is hard to fake, and passion is impossible to counterfeit." The Grandview expansion campaign launched 6 months later and won 3 industry awards, including the prestigious National Marketing Excellence Award. But more importantly, it proved that when you create something with genuine passion and understanding, that authenticity resonates with people in ways you never expected. Looking back now, I'm grateful for what happened. Yes, it was painful and unfair, but it forced me to find my voice and stand up for myself in a way I never had before. That moment in the conference room, when I decided to reveal the truth, changed not just my career trajectory, but my entire relationship with my own worth and capabilities. I learned that sometimes the most professional thing you can do is to calmly, clearly, and comprehensively present the facts and let them speak for themselves. You don't need to be aggressive or confrontational. You don't need to make accusations or create drama. You just need to have the courage to let the truth be known. The marketing department I lead now operates on complete transparency. We celebrate individual contributions. We acknowledge collaborative efforts, and we never ever let someone take credit for work they didn't do. My team knows that their ideas are safe, their contributions will be recognized, and their hard work will speak for itself. And Derek, I heard through the grapevine that he's working at a smaller firm now, in a non-management role. I don't wish him ill, but I hope he learns something from the experience about the kind of leader he wants to be. As for me, I'm still here, still creating campaigns that connect with people's hearts, still believing that innovation comes from genuine understanding and authentic passion. The difference is, now I make sure the right people get credit for their work, because everyone deserves to have their moment in the spotlight, especially when they've earned it through months of dedication, creativity, and sheer determination to create something meaningful. The truth always finds a way to the surface. Sometimes it just needs someone brave enough to bring it into the light. Did you love this workplace justice story? Don't miss our next incredible real-life tales. Subscribe to Top Life Stories for more true stories of people who took control of their lives and got the justice they deserved. Smash that like button if you think Sarah did the right thing by exposing the truth in that meeting. Drop a comment with your own experience. Have you ever had to face an unfair boss? How did you handle the situation? We want to hear your story. Hit the notification bell to be the first to watch our new videos about workplace revenge, family drama, and personal triumph stories that will leave you speechless. Share this story with someone who needs inspiration to stand up for themselves at work. Sometimes we all need that push of courage to do what's right. Coming up next, my mother-in-law tried to ruin my wedding, but my response left her speechless. See you in the comments, Top Life Stories family.